and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Vincent Pizzulli, attorney to the board. To his left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the planning department. You're all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide us with precise and accurate information so we as a board can make the decision based on the facts that you present here tonight. We as a board must consider the 5 following conditions. They're listed over here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other means. Number 3, whether the variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings and mailing to Mr. Donadio. Then you will be asked to go to the podium where you will state your name and address for the record and then proceed to tell us why you need your variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 3 ways to find out about your case. You could stay after the hearing, but there's no guarantee your case will be acted on tonight. You can call the planning office tomorrow afternoon, or you can wait and be notified by mail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first case on the agenda, case number 18296, Giuseppe Abrancati, 5 Maple Lawn Drive, Comac. The location of the property is the northeast corner of Veterans Memorial Highway and Maple Lawn Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the rear yard from 75 feet to 30 feet. It is existing at 47 feet for a 320-square-foot second-story deck. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Could you state your name and address for the record,
Yes,
please?
my name is Giuseppe Abrancati. I live at 31 Grandview Lane in Smithtown. And the reason we're here to request a variance for a deck that we built a little larger than what was proposed for a new house that when it was built on Maple Lawn and Vets Highway. So we had a little non-reliable architect, so we kind of missed the deck being a little too small. So when we built the house, we decided to make it a little bigger. So, we figured we had to get new plans. Mm-hmm. And we got all the inspection done as it was built. Everything was approved. So that's pretty much it.
This is a high ranch.
Yes.
Yeah. Decks off the back.
That's it, yes. It was a little too small, but we missed. But
Yeah.
it's a brand new house that we built.
Could you go back one, please? Yeah. Go forward.
We just went out a little
Right there. That's the drawing, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
No.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
next case on the agenda, case number 18297, Bobby Wilkins, 4 Arden Lane in Comac. The location of the property is the east side, the south side of Arden Lane, 109 feet east of Grendon Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard from 40 feet to 28 feet, reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 27 feet, which are existing, for a proposed 211 square foot first floor addition and 33 square foot porch.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And your name is?
It's Bobby Wilkins,
And your address, please, Bob?
4 Arden Lane, Comac.
Would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
I'm good for,
Okay.
thank you. Sorry. For this, what we're looking to do is, we have a small ranch, 1,000 square foot ranch. We're looking to extend out the front for an addition for a kitchen. I have a young family right now. We're planning on expanding, having another child, and the house it's just too small. We love the neighborhood. We love the area. I grew up in Smithtown. We want to stay there, so we'd like to make this a livable place for us. It's a little too small right now.
All right. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No? Excuse me. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next application on the agenda is case number 18298, Marguerite Discorsi, 83 Rosewood Drive, Kings Park. The location of the property, the south side of Rosewood Road, 100 feet east of Longfellow Drive. The property is zoned R10. Thank you. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 6 feet for a hot tub and a 317 square foot roof over patio. To reduce the minimum setback of a retaining wall to a lot line from 3 feet to 0. To increase the maximum height of a fence from 4 feet to 5.
Good evening.
My name is John Gleason, architect, 336 6th Avenue, St. James.
Could you just spell your last name, John?
Gleason.
Thank you.
I'm here to represent the homeowner, Mrs. Discorsi. Basically, this variance is all real prior work, and I just wanted the board to note that the awning in the back is in line with the north side of the house. The house is a non-conforming structure. The house is, part of the house is 4.4 feet off the north property line. The relief we're seeking is for 6 feet. The 5-foot front yard fence is a foot above the requirement of 4 feet for a front yard. But the type of style of fence, as you can see in the photograph, it's an estate fence. It's black aluminum and really poses no objectionable views compared to other fences you can see in the picture with solid vinyl PVC. So that's why we're asking the board to grant relief for these various variances that we're asking for.
All right.
I have a question. If we grant this, can we put a condition on that you keep it as an estate fence?
Excuse me? That you,
Put a condition on that you keep it as an estate fence?
yeah, I think we're agreeable to that. Yeah, it's a brand new fence, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else on the board have any questions? Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? You have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next application on the agenda, case number 18299, Jared Goldstein, 10 Stonywood Drive in Comac, the location of the property, the north side of Stonywood Drive, 298 feet east of Florida Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the maximum permitted surface in the front yard from 25% to 40%. Increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the side yard from 25% to 60%. Increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the rear yard from 25% to 40%.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Linda Ruisi. I have from Definitive Design.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Sure. R as in Robert, U-I-S-I.
Thank you.
My office is located at 76 West Montauk Highway, Hampton Bays, New York, 11946.
Yeah.
Sure. Definitive Design.
Nope.
Do you have a power of attorney?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a power of attorney from your client?
Not with me.
Oh. I thought you handed it in.
I
Handed in the affidavit.
affidavits. I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that I needed the power of attorney when I went there and spoke with them. I don't believe that they had said that. I mean, I can go get it before the meeting is over. That's not a problem. I'll just go while you have your rest of your meetings.
And have the client sign it? and-
Yep.
Okay,
Is that all right?
that'd be fine.
So do you want to adjourn me until the end, or would you like to just do this and then I will provide that for you?
We'll see when you come back.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe we could squeeze you in.
all right,
All
all
right?
right, no problem.
Okay.
Or they could come here.
Yeah, or the client can come here.
And just announce that you're,
Okay, I'll, either way, I'll make sure that I have something for you.
Okay.
All right? Thank you.
You want to put this back in the folder?
We'll just hold it. We'll just hold it, Steve? Yeah.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18300, Ryan O'Rourke, 108 Hayrick Lane, Comac, the location of the property, the northwest corner of Hayrick Lane and Split Rail Place. The property is owned R43. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard on Split Rail Place from 50 feet to 36 feet for a proposed 706 square foot two-story addition.
Good evening. Are you the applicant, sir?
I am, and this is my wife.
Could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Ryan Rourke, 108 Hayrick Lane, Comac, New York.
And would you like
Gennaro
would you
will
like
be
this
speaking.
gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Could you state your name, sir? Spell your last name and give your address, please?
Gennaro Cozzolino, Cozzolino, 2125 Deer Park Avenue, Deer Park, New York, 11729.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Gennaro Cozzolino for the homeowner, Ryan Rourke, residing at 108 Hayrick Lane, Comac, also known as Section 62, Block 4, Lot 9, located in an R43 modified zoning district. We're requesting relief from the board to build a 14 by 26.5 foot two-story addition in the secondary front yard. The proposed addition requires a variance from minimum front yard setback, requesting to build at 36 feet from permitted 50 feet, a difference of 14 feet. The proposed addition meets all other zoning requirements. The proposed addition will have no significant impact to the environment, will not affect any of the adjacent properties, and will fit in with the character and nature of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No question.
Planning.
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? You have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Good
Thank you.
evening.
Please.
The next application, case number 18301, Artist Senior Living Holding of Comac. Excuse me. The location of the property, the north side of Jericho Turnpike, 755 feet east of Kings Park Road. The property is zoned WSI. The applicant is requesting variances to, to reduce the front yard, the minimum required front yard from 50 feet to 40 feet, to increase the height of a wall from 4 feet to 8 feet for a generator enclosure.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is John Stalakis. I'm an associate with Farrell Fritz, and we represent the applicant, Artist Senior Living.
Could you spell your last name so we get it correctly, please?
Yes, of course. My last name is Stalakis, S as in Sierra, Tellakis.
Thank you.
And tonight, here with me is Dale Koch from Bowler Engineering. So if we have any engineering questions, we can ask him. Artist is the owner-operator of assisted living communities devoted to the finest level of memory care. And their portfolio includes approximately 24 facilities nationwide, which are either in operation, in the planning stages, or under construction. Their facility care focuses upon persons affected by Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. Artist obtained a change of zone, a special exception permit, and other approvals in connection with establishing an assisted living facility for the memory impaired at 1131 Jericho Turnpike, and construction of the facility has been underway for the last year or so. In relevant part, the initial plans included natural gas as an energy source. However, during construction, National Grid's natural gas moratorium nearly derailed the project. Given that natural gas was then unavailable as an energy source, the duration of its unavailability was unknown, and the future of natural gas on Long Island was uncertain, the moratorium forced Artist to switch energy sources. The switch required, among other things, changing from a natural gas emergency power generator to a diesel one to ensure reliable backup power. The new generator is larger and taller than initially planned, which size differential has triggered the 2 area variance requests tonight. Artist seeks 2 variances in connection with a fenced enclosure for the generator. The first variance request is a reduction in the minimum front yard requirement from 50 feet to 40 feet per code section 322-9B, as well as a fenced enclosure height of 8 feet, where a maximum height of 4 feet is permitted pursuant to code section 322-13A. At the outset, I must inform you that the enclosure is partially built, and I'll show you photographs in a moment if you haven't seen the site already. But I'd like you to note that the partially built enclosure is only 6 feet high. The contractors were acting in good faith to comply with the zoning ordinance and maintain their construction schedule. I spoke with the lead contractor yesterday, who told me that they will not proceed above 6 feet without approval. Obviously, they had a mistaken belief that they could build to 6 feet for a wall when it's 4 feet, so I just wanted to clear that up for the board. The subject premises were a vacant, overgrown, and undeveloped lot where Artist began construction of its facility. The approximately 2.5 acre premises are situated on the north side of Jericho Turnpike, about 800 feet east of Kings Park Road. The premises are split zoned, with the front 300 feet zoned within the industrial WSI district and the rear 50 feet zoned residential R10. A limousine service and rental business is located directly to the east. To the west is a vacant lot and a Northgate shopping center. Across Jericho Turnpike to the south are several commercial operations and businesses, as well as the former Courtesy Inn, which is currently under development as apartments. And to the north are the Pinewood Estates residential community. If you turn to Exhibit 1 in your booklet, that contains the pertinent tax map, zoning map with legend, and various Google Maps images that show what the site looks like. And if you turn to the last image there's a call out for the approximate location.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Mrs. Delacus, Mr. Donadio reviewed your submission. You submitted an affidavit of posting.
Yes.
Is this the affidavit of mailing behind here, please? Did you? You good with that? Oh, it says he's.
Okay.
It's not the usual form affidavit, but it appears that you did submit the affidavit of mailing. So go ahead, proceed.
I apologize.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The last photograph of Exhibit 6, which is zoomed in fairly closely, has a little red call out on the southeast corner of the property, and that's where the generator is, the approximate location of the generator and its enclosure. Exhibit 2 contains a survey of the premises, as well as site detail plans. And the second plan, which is a duplicate plan, also shows the generator called out on the southeast corner with a little red circle. And it's shown up on the screen, highlighted in yellow. Before I address the actual enclosure, I think it's important to talk about what's going to go inside it. Exhibit 3 contains specifications for the actual generator. This is just giving you a scale of why the enclosure is going to be as large as it is. Page 3 shows what it's going to look like. It's about 25 feet long. It's about 6 feet wide and 11 feet high. So these dimensions require a larger and a higher enclosure than initially proposed, which is why we're back before the board. Exhibit 4 contains site details and elevations for the enclosure itself. Number 6 on this plan shows the generator enclosure elevation, indicating an 8 foot in height, and this elevation is going to be facing westward toward the facility and the entranceway. And if you look at number 11 on the right-hand side, this is a detail of the actual enclosure itself. And it shows that the actual enclosure will be 15.5 feet wide by 39 or 40 feet or so long. And it's hard to tell on here, and I'll show you pictures in a minute, but the concrete pad within this enclosure is actually about 3 feet below grade, and that's so that the height of the generator will be lower above grade so that the height for the enclosure can be lower. Exhibit 5 shows what's been built to date. These photographs were taken yesterday on site. So you can see, rather than a rendering, what the actual figure will look like, or the enclosure will look like. And as you proceed through the photographs, you can see that the interior concrete pad is below grade. And you can see that they have not finished building the height of the wall because we're waiting for approvals. To put the application into perspective, the initial plan called for an enclosure of 10 feet by 31 feet for the natural gas generator, which was going to be located within the side yard. So the switch to diesel expanded the dimensions. So these dimensions pushed the enclosure into the front yard setback and required a higher enclosure. And not only is it no longer in the side yard where 6 foot height is permitted, but now it's in the front yard where only a 4 foot height is permitted. And that's all caused by the moratorium on natural gas that required the transition. Before I address the 5 factors, I just would like to go through the surrounding area, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. As I discussed earlier, to the right of an Exhibit 6 contains photographs also taken yesterday of the surrounding area. To the right is the limousine business, and there's a picture there for you. The next 2 photos are of the vacant lot that are to the west of the premises, and then as well as the Northgate Shopping Center. And the next several photographs show south of Jericho Turnpike, the custom pool business, the Tudor Tang, and the apartments that are currently under development. Following those photographs are photographs taken from the Pinewood Estates to the north, and as indicated on the exhibits, these photographs were taken in April of last year, but nothing has changed in terms of the berm, the fence, and the screening from the trees from that viewpoint. In determining requests for area variances, this board must consider the benefit to the applicant if the variance is granted as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant. And this consideration weighs the 5 factors enumerated before us. Overall, the benefits to artists include enclosing and screening the emergency generator to improve the visual aesthetics, as well as provide greater safety and security and protecting residents, guests, and passersby from the generator, and vice versa. And these benefits also accrue to the public. The location and height of the generator enclosure will not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. The enclosure is located along Jericho Turnpike within an industrial zone in the corner of a parking lot and adjacent to the limousine rental and service company. The enclosure is not visible from the residential community. The benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by other feasible methods. The facility requires a backup generator for its employees and its residents to ensure devices have electricity and to ensure adequate lighting for traversing the facility, among other things. The generator must be located near the main power connection to provide the backup power. An artist was forced to utilize the larger generator, which is causing the protruding into the front yard and the height in excess of the code. The enclosure cannot be relocated farther back into the side yard because it would displace parking spaces which are needed. An artist has also dug below grade for the concrete slab to reduce the impact and reduce the variance requested relief. While the height variance numerically may be substantial, asking for 8 feet in a 4-foot area, substantiality cannot be judged solely by comparing the percentage deviation from the mandated requirements of the zoning ordinance and should not be considered in the abstract. Substantiality must be viewed in the context of whether the deviation creates a detriment to the neighborhood, and a distinction between the quantity of the deviation and the quality of the variance must be drawn. Here the variance is for an enclosure of approximately 110 linear feet surrounding a 600 square foot rectangle in the corner of a 106,000 square foot lot on Jericho Turnpike. The height of the enclosure will not create any adverse effects and is not qualitatively substantial. For the same reasons, the reduction in the front yard from 50 feet to 40 feet is neither substantial nor detrimental. These variances will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. The enclosure hosts an emergency generator within a parking lot on Jericho Turnpike. It does not impact a critically sensitive environmental area, wetlands, or residential neighborhood. And lastly, the alleged difficulty was not self-created. These variance requests were directly triggered by the National Grid gas moratorium, over which Artis had no control, and Artis has done what it can to reduce the relief needed here. For the reasons stated, I respectfully request that this board grant the relief requested. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
I happened to be there yesterday. In my opinion, the wall is done very nicely. It's in good taste. In front of the wall, I guess, is a high voltage box or a transfer switch box. And that's up on a berm. Is that berm going to be planted when you're done?
Yeah.
Could you just introduce yourself, please?
Sure, of course. Good evening, Dale Koch from Bowler Engineering, 2929 Expressway Drive North in Hauppauge. So yes, to answer your question, the enclosure for the generator and the transformer that are placed directly in front of it are going to be screened with 6 to 7 foot high junipers. So they'll be 6 to 7 foot at time of planting, but they'll grow pretty quickly in that area. And all 3 of the property lines, if you looked at the landscaping plan, are pretty significantly planted. And it's important, if anyone's here from the residents nearby, the only thing that's changing right now in the plan is just the height of that enclosure. The buffers and all the other site features that we've worked really hard over the past 3 or 4 years with planning are all staying the same.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions?
No, thanks.
No,
Planning?
thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Maureen
Last name is Veprek. It's Veprek. I live in Comac. I've been there for 57 years. I do not live near this facility, but I've watched it grow. The one question I have is, if National Grid, through Governor Cuomo, putting through this edict that National Grid has to start opening up some of these different stoppages that I guess they've had for new construction, would this group relate back to using gas as opposed to a generator, which has an ongoing sound, I'm assuming? One of the things that's happened in Comac is that it's become rather loud. And it's not only traffic, it's all the other things that contribute to that. And so if we have a larger than normal generator, I understand they need to have it as a backup and all the things that are required. But would the sound have an abatement of some sort other than just these trees, that bushes, or whatever it is that they're putting together here?
All right,
Okay.
I'll ask.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? No? Would you like to answer her concerns?
Absolutely, and that's actually a really, really good question, and I actually should have addressed it before. So there's a couple components to the generator that are creating us to go a little higher. So the first part is there is the belly tank underneath the diesel generator that, because we have to now have a fuel tank for diesel fuel and have to have enough fuel to power the building for a certain amount of time, and I don't know the exact amount of time, but it's a pretty big fuel tank. That increases the height of the generator. It doesn't require, the diesel generator doesn't require a bigger motor or necessarily a louder motor. Both generators, because we looked at doing natural gas originally and then the diesel generator, are in a sound-tight enclosure inside the enclosure that we're building out of concrete blocks. So there's a skin-tight, sound-reducing enclosure that goes around the generator that reduces sound in general. And then the purpose of the wall is to, number one, screen it so you don't see an ugly generator just sitting out in the street, but to also then further reduce the sound. So there's a pretty big space around the generator inside the enclosure, and then there's this big concrete wall. So really, if you walk by when it's running, there's not going to be a big sound coming from that generator. And then to answer the second piece of the question, unfortunately, because of the timing and everything that would happen with the moratorium with National Grid, a lot of the components inside the building are being set up so that they can transfer if and when we get gas service to the building. But with the approvals that are required for the generator, we didn't have enough time. And as of right now, it looks like they're going to install a diesel generator, run it, and then if in the near future or sometime in the future it's more economical or smart for them to switch, they'll switch back.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18252, Brandon Pasenica, 13 Birch Road, Kings Park. Excuse me. The location of the property is the west side of Birch Road, 360 feet south of Woodland Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 8 feet and total side yards from 28 feet to 27 feet for a proposed 14-foot by 30-foot in-ground pool.
Good evening.
Good evening. Peter Booth,
One
B-O-O-T-H.
second. Can I have the applicant first?
Hi.
Yeah. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Thank you. Brandon Seneca, 13 Birch Road, Kings Park, New York.
And would you like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, I would.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir? Could you state your name, spell your last name, please, and give your address?
Peter Booth, B-O-O-T-H, 5 Kirk Avenue, Ronkonkoma, New York.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mr. Benica comes before the board requesting a minimum side yard reduction from 12 feet to 8 feet, as well as a total side yard of 28 foot down to 27 foot. As you can see by the piece of property, the pool is placed in the corner, and the reason for that, the property is elevated at that point. You have a 30-foot wall, a 30-inch wall on the side of it, so you have 2 levels in the backyard. So as far as moving the pool or parallel to the house, he has issues with a patio, as well as he also has a dry well situated in the back for drainage off of the house itself. So that's the actual only place where the pool can be located. I don't believe that this request is substantial. It's not going to have any effect on the surrounding properties. It wasn't self-created. That's the way the property was when he purchased it. And I put it before the board. Should you have any questions?
Okay, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application? Planning.
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Give a motion to close the application, please.
So moved.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you.
The next case, case number 18289, Stefan Lasik, 212 4th Street, St. James. The location of the property, the south side of 4th Street, 100 feet east of 4th Avenue. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit an accessory structure in the required front yard to reduce the minimum front yard from 25 feet to 21 feet for a proposed 500-square-foot detached garage.
All right.
Bit of a learning curve here.
Well, we all learn. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joe Oliveri, Oliveri. I'm representing Stefan Lasik at 212 4th Avenue, 4th Street, sorry. What we're looking for tonight is he would like to erect a 25-foot wide by 20-foot deep detached garage. Right now, he's a car collector, and he has a driveway in the front of his house with 2 collectible cars. And the purpose of the garage would be to house them and protect them from the elements. The reason we're looking for a front yard reduction from required 25 feet down to 21 feet. We're asking for 4-foot variance. And what we're trying to do is align the front of the garage with the front of the house, which existing right now is at that 21-foot setback. In addition, there's an existing in-ground swimming pool, 36-foot by 18-foot in the rear yard is existing, and there is a CO for that structure. So if we push the garage any further back on the property, it's gonna encroach and get too close to the pool and the patio, and we're also just concerned about the the visual effect of that. The lot, and I do have pictures here. The lot is pretty wide. It's 100 feet wide, street frontage, and the house is more towards the west. So it lends itself to having the room for a detached garage. I just want to, can I hand the picture out?
Certainly. Okay. Yeah.
So we don't think that this is going to take away from the neighborhood. It's not going to cause any adverse effect to the neighbors or property values. And we think that it's going to, suit the owner to have the protection for his collectible cars.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
Lanny?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. That young lady never came back, right? No? All right, let's go on to the next one.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18286, Basser Kaufman of Fort Salonga LLC, 9 Fort Salonga Road, Fort Salonga. The location of the property is the north side of Fort Salonga Road, or New York State Route 25A, 200 feet east of Fresh Pond Road. The property is zoned NB. The applicant is requesting variances to permit environmentally sensitive land, depth to groundwater less than 10 feet to be altered, reduce the required setback of structures within 100 feet of wetlands to 0, reduce the minimum truck loading space from 1 to 0, increase the maximum square footage of a ground sign from 32 feet to 69 feet for proposed 2,994 square foot 7-Eleven.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I've submitted the affidavit of posting to Mr. Donadio. I think you're all familiar with the location on Fort Salonga Road, Route 25A. It's now a closed Capital Bank building. Our intention, if the board so approves, is to demolish that building and produce a 7-Eleven building. And I'd like to note that my clients, and the architect and the engineers met with the town planning department and specifically designed the building with all of the recommendations of the planning department. Additionally, I'd like to point out that these variances were granted many years ago when Capital Bank put their building on there. The same environmentally sensitive land depth to groundwater, which is now about 6.5 feet rather than the required 10, and a variance to permit structures within 100 feet of the wetlands. Those were there when Capital Bank made its application, and this board granted them. I'm not so sure that Capital Bank needed a truck loading space, but if they did, I'm certain it would have been granted. I'd also like to indicate that the landscaping that we are going to perform and produce is pretty much indicated on the slide on the viewing screen. You can see there's so much green there, probably almost half as much as there is construction and paving. The other thing that I'd like to indicate too is that the impervious surfaces are less now than they were with Capital Bank. So in other words, they will produce less water rolling off the building and the parking lot as they do right now with the Capital Bank building. Right now, I'd like to call Dale Koch from Bowler Engineering, who'll go through some of the specifics with respect to the building, as well as some environmental issues. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Can you just state your name again for the record?
Absolutely. Dale Koch from Bowler Engineering, 2929 Expressway Drive North, Hauppauge, New York. Good evening, members of the board. Just to really walk us through the site, I'll take a couple minutes and just present the site plan. What I would like to note, which is important for this application, is that we have worked extensively with the planning department. They've been incredibly helpful, kind of ironing out this plan and trying to come up with something that really works for both 7-Eleven and for what the planning department and the town is looking for when it comes to developing this site. So there are some changes that have happened. We are showing that we are providing a loading space. It is, however, land banked because 7-Eleven doesn't necessarily feel that they need a designated loading space behind the building, but we are showing the capabilities of having it. But it's a land bank stall in the absolute north portion of the site. And then also the ground sign variance, there's a 32 square foot ground sign that's being proposed. Previously, it was 69 square feet because the town of Smithtown code requires that if it's a monument sign, you have to include the base of that sign. So we've actually altered the sign, and we are no longer requesting a sign variance. It'll be an as-of-right pylon sign. It's a 32 square foot sign. I believe as-of-right height is 15 feet. We're at about 13 and a half. And I could confirm that number if the board has any questions on it. So just walking through the site, on the absolute west side of the site will be, so if you look at the site plan, north is up. On the east side, we're proposing a new curb cut. It's essentially in the same location as the original curb cut for the bank. However, it's going to be a full movement in and out. We are working with the New York State DOT. We've submitted to them. We have not received any correspondence back from them. But we made a submission early December to the DOT for them to review the access. We hope to hear back from them in the next couple of weeks, really. They've been getting back to us fairly quickly. On the west side of the site, there is an exit only going out onto Route 25A. We're proposing a new about 2,995 square foot building. Directly in front of the building are parking stalls, along with a row of parking stalls along the side and in the rear of the building. We are providing some spaces for land bank stalls. Now, again, we want to show that we can meet the amount of stalls that we need for the town requirement. However, we're really opting to land bank those stalls. We'd rather see them as grass. 7-Eleven, as you guys all know, they're really throughout Long Island. They know their business very, very well. They know what they need. So we've decided to land bank a few stalls to increase the amount of landscaping. Northeast corner of the site is a trash enclosure, surrounded all by new landscaping, pretty heavy landscape buffer along the north side of the site, and then some new landscaping on both sides, east and west property lines, and some landscaping around the building as coordinated with the planning department. We added some treatments on the building. Just for clarity, there is on the west side of the building there a small triangular area that's fenced in. Instead of putting the rooftop units for the HVAC up on the roof, we've decided, and 7-Eleven's done this in a few locations now on Long Island, to put them down on the ground so they can properly be screened and blocked out from anybody driving by. You'll just see the trees and a fence. You won't see any of the mechanical equipment on the roof. They feel like the architecture, especially in a location like this, is really important. So they came up with this idea to put them down on the ground. So just in case anybody's wondering, it could be it's a little confusing. Again, we've worked really closely with planning. There is a good amount of parking, access roadways. The driveway in front of the building is a little bigger than you would typically see. Reason being, we don't want to have a situation where a truck can't get in and stop on the site and unload. We've dealt with it in other locations where we've seen existing facilities that have trucks unloading on the street because they can't drive onto the site. We've analyzed the driveways and made sure the trucks can circulate and get on and off the site without having a problem. And then, I mean, really just, there's public access for pedestrians coming off the right-of-way, and there's a concrete sidewalk and a crosswalk that goes across the front of the site. And then just to really kind of hit on some of the variances, and this is really why we're here, these are the important ones. The site, the use itself is as of right. We're not here asking for a special permit. We're not here asking for any special use variance. It's an as of right use for the zone, and you know, it's a good use for the zone. The variances, the two main variances we're requesting are for lot coverage due to the proximity of the state wetlands. So back in October and November, we had an environmental company go out, Rue Associates, and they flagged the wetlands along with a DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation representative, went out, helped us flag the wetlands, and then our surveyor, John Minto, went out and actually picked up the flags and allowed us to plot them. They were actually all off the property to the north and a little bit to the east. And then we were able to properly plot the 100-foot setback. And it does come onto our site. It goes, basically, you can't see it on this, but we can stay on this site plan. It goes the northern parking stalls directly behind the building. It comes down and kind of touches along those parking stalls. Then there's a proposed tree in a landscaped island to the northeast of the building. It makes a small turn and goes down along the east side of the site, and then makes ultimately a turn and goes off the site. So that's the 100-foot buffer to your wetlands. Wetlands typically are treated in a few different ways on Long Island, but for the most part, your applications do have to go to the New York State DEC. We've made an initial application to the DEC, and then we've since supplemented with a more detailed application because of the proximity to the wetlands. Original submission on that was back in December. We've made a more substantial submission with full design documents as of earlier this week. The important piece to this and working with them is that we are actually reducing the amount of impervious area on this site. Now, it's not an incredibly large site, but we are reducing it by approximately 750 square feet. We are going from, and we are pulling everything to the south and to the west. There are a few areas on the western property line that we are encroaching that weren't previously encroached on, and there was, the original driveway came in and hugged a little closer to the existing building. So there is a small piece of landscaping on the eastern side of the site that we are eliminating, but then again, to the north and areas around where the wetlands buffer is, we're actually pulling back and increasing the amount of impervious area. Decreasing the amount of impervious area, we're increasing pervious area. So we are increasing landscaped area on the site. The other important piece, or the other variance that we're requesting, is the depth to groundwater. We had a company go out and to perform test borings. The depth of groundwater is approximately 6.5 to 7 feet. Those borings most recently were performed in November of 2019. Really, that just presents a little bit of a challenge for our office to come up with a stormwater system that meets the requirements of both the DEC and the town of Smithtown. We were able to utilize some newer technology, lower depth type structures. They're going to provide the 2 feet of separation you need from groundwater, along with providing the amount of storage we need to meet all the requirements of both the town of Smithtown and the DEC. And then finally, just from an overall standpoint, I think it's important, just because we're talking about groundwater, we're talking about sensitive areas, the sanitary system. So a sanitary system for a 7-Eleven obviously is designed based on the requirements of the Suffolk County Department of Health Services. Based on their requirements, their density load for a 7-Eleven, so there's a couple different calculations you have to do, but their density load, which is the most important, the important calculation to figure out your sanitary flow, is actually half of what a bank would be. So the exact calculation is 0.03 gallons per day per square foot of building. For a bank, it's 0.06 gallons per day per square foot of building. So if the buildings were the exact same size, the bank would require, or would have a double the amount of sanitary flow in terms of density, which is your, essentially your domestic waste, where those are your nitrogen levels. And when I talk about density flow, that's what the Suffolk County Department of Health Services broke down and limited you to a certain amount of density per every site. So in this area, you're allowed 600 gallons per day per acre. So that's, if you have a 1 acre piece of property, your maximum density load is 600 gallons per day. So this site is 0.82 acres, I believe it is. Your density load for this new 7-Eleven is 85 gallons per day. So you would be allowed approximately 490 gallons per day. We're at about 90 gallons per day. That's our density load. And then the bank, the previously approved, or the previously built bank, has a density load of approximately 150 gallons per day. So it's just shy of double. So we are actually reducing the sanitary impact on the site as well compared to what's there right now. And then just to clarify, there is that triangular piece on the northwest corner of the site that does have frontage, I guess, really you could say, on Fresh Pond Road. We're not proposing to do anything in that area. I have mentioned, we actually had a meeting with the Civic Association. I just did mention, and I'll mention it to the board, the existing water line runs through that piece of the property. So while we bring this site up to code, we will be installing a small hot box for the RPZ device in that area. So there will be a very small piece of construction that's going on in that northwest corner, but we'll make sure that we screen the hot box, and it'll be set back from the property line. You really won't see it, but I just felt like it was important to mention. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the board has on the site or any of the variances I spoke about.
The septic system, is that going to be one of those new nitrogen systems that we hear about?
No, it's not. So the current requirement for the commercial building is a standard septic tank and grease trap, and then some lower profile leaching galleys. So that's.
All right.
The new system is for residential applications. The new system is for residential applications at the health department.
The bank building itself, it's going to be totally demolished. Now, this proposed 7-Eleven, it's not in the same spot, it's moved back further?
It's moved back about 10 feet, a little bit more. You can see it here. It's moved back and then a little bit farther to the west. Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone on board have any questions?
Did you get a chance to see the modified site plan that planning had put together?
That our plan that's on this presentation reflects those changes, yes.
The January 9th changes?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Anyone
Yeah,
else?
so, and I just want to be 100% clear with the board. So the revised, the site plan that was shown up there, it matches except for, we made the driveway in the front a little larger, just to accommodate. So we had to adjust a few of the items on the site, but it was really only by about a foot that we had to move some things around to make sure that the truck circulation could work compared to that plan.
Okay. And last, what are the finishes on the facade?
So it's mostly a clapboard. There's some clapboard hardy plank. There's some a rock treatment along the bottom of it. I actually have a colored.
Can we see that?
Yeah, you could, sure.
I'm sorry, Dale.
It's okay.
Just recently, did we discuss having the building match the existing bank that's there and doing a brick facade? Because I know you just mentioned hardy plank, and I don't think that's what we discussed.
Wait, I don't remember talking about this is what we have right now. I'm 99% sure that 7-Eleven would have no problem with doing some type of brick facade, but I can find out. Or at least maybe replacing this, there's a rock treatment maybe down on the bottom here, doing a brick up, and then doing the rest in some type of decorative hardy plank, but.
I know that was the original proposal when the application first came into planning. And I came in late into the planning process of this. But most recently, within the past couple of weeks, my understanding from Pete Hans, he's the planning director, and from Liam Trotta, he's the planner who does all of the commercial site plan review, was that the planning's recommendation was to revise the facade to match the existing brick building.
Okay.
You guys did the design on it, Dale?
No, we don't, yeah, we don't design the art. These were done by Bartlett.
So that conversation maybe was had with someone else?
It's possible.
But will be resolved at Board of Site Plan Review.
Yeah, everything will be looked at in the next phase.
We'll obviously definitely work with planning.
It's too small for me to read.
Yeah, it looks like, no, okay, yeah. That updated elevation. I'm sorry. I apologize. So the updated elevation that was just completed very recently by 7-Eleven is showing a brick veneer on the building.
Okay, thanks.
I apologize.
Anyone else on the board have any questions? No. Planning, any more questions?
No questions. The only comment I would have is that the site plan has been revised to substantially comply with the recommendations that planning made, which is shown on this sketch. There are a few things that we would like to see tweaked. However, should this application be approved by the board and it does move forward, it would have to go before the Board of Site Plan Review, which at that time, those issues could be addressed and revised.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? All right, come on up one at a time. Everybody's going to be given one opportunity to speak, so. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Thomas. I live at 14 Mountain View Drive, Fort Salonga.
Chris, could you spell your last name so we get it correct on the
Thomas,
record?
Thomas.
Thank you.
So I came into this process a little late, and I can tell you that most of my neighbors are not even aware that this is happening, that a 7-Eleven is going to potentially be going into this property. I've lived here for 20 years. I live about a mile down the road. First of all, I'd like to say that this is not a neighborhood for a 7-Eleven. This is a rural, bucolic area. A 7-Eleven does not belong there. And even more, so there's a setback for a reason. Why is there a 100-foot setback that now is going to be obviated? That makes no sense. This is a fragile wetland area that is preserved by law, right? And now we're asking to put a 7-Eleven that's going to have grease traps and public restrooms and et cetera, trucks in and out of there. It makes no sense. This is not a good use of this area. So point number 1 and point number 4 are exactly what, my problem with this whole thing. It's a sensitive area, and the 7-Eleven should not go there.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
Hello, I'm Karen Stubbs. I live on Talmadge Road, right near where we're putting what they're looking to put this.
Again, could you spell your last name so we get it
Stubbs,
correct?
S-T-U-B-B-S.
Thank you.
Also a very late comer into this process. Big news for all the neighbors. I can assure you that I have not spoken to one that is, yay, 7-Eleven. This is not the area for a 7-Eleven. It's, that this may not be it may be too late for that, but I'm very concerned with having a 7-Eleven here, not just because, it belongs in more of an urban area, but the fact is, in this particular area of Smithtown, it is right up against, nature. We're in a very, very bucolic area. I think that the standards for development in this particular area should be not standards that you would find in the more urban areas of Smithtown. I think that these standards should be much higher. Environmental, Obviously, they're working very hard on the facade, God bless them, but I think that it should not be specifically put against whatever rules and regulations they used to have when they put the banks up. I don't want to hear that, you know, this is the basics that we can build on. I would like to see this development and any other development in this area looking forward to the future. I'm not talking specific, you know, I'm not talking climate change, all of that, but I think it's time, and especially in outlying areas like this, that we look ahead towards stricter, just a, you know, even if it's not, maybe they are coming in right into where maybe it's lawful to put whatever standards or whatever. The fact is, we should expect better where we can. In areas like this, it's not necessary to put you know, scale back the standards and the whatever regulations there may be. It's not necessary to put a 7-Eleven here. It's absolutely imperative that we pay attention to the fact that this 7-Eleven is going to get traffic. And please, let's capitalize trash. There will be trash. This is the type of business that attracts people that don't belong that don't live in our area. They're going to go in their cars. They're going to throw they're going to empty their ashtrays out. And maybe 7-Eleven has a plan for that. But in my experience, that's not typical. I think with regard to planning the building, the standards must be kept absolutely as high as we can, obviously legally and, you know, conscionably. I think that everything about this particular plan must be kept to the absolute highest standards. And, you know, they must be made accountable to the fact that this is not a very good fit for our neighborhood. I feel like they need to answer to that sort of thing, particularly traffic and you know, usage, you know, setbacks and all of this, and water quality and runoff and whatever. The water table issue, it's huge. We've got, you know, oceans are rising. The water table is not, you know, that's huge. You must pay close attention to this. This is all Greek to me, but I'm pleading with you to maintain every possible standard for a property that is, you know, it's not hemmed in. It doesn't have a lot of, you know, need, really. I mean, I'm sure that the market is there. I'm sure they've done all their you know, their homework on this. But they'll be developing the market, and I think that all needs to be completely done as responsibly as possible. Thanks.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Sir?
Hi, my name is
Good evening.
Karen Welkis, Welkis. I live on 53 Heights Road in Fort Salong. I've been here for 45 years. I don't know how far you're all a little young and you might not remember, but we had a proposal for a 7-Eleven in 1989, and every single person in the community was against it, and it was finally defeated. And it was diagonal to this proposal. It was on the southwest corner of 25A and Bread and Cheese Hollow Road. And none of the people who live there have changed their minds. This is a totally poor fit. And there are 5 7-Elevens within a mile and a half of this proposed 7-Eleven. It is absolutely unnecessary. We have so much problem with debris, traffic, and noise coming up and down Bread and Cheese Hollow Road. To add this to the mix in a bucolic community like Fort Salonga is a crime to nature. This is simply not the place for it. It brings in what isn't there now. These are a couple of stores along 25A. Most of them close by 9, except for a few restaurants. That's all there is. And now you bring in a 24-hour convenience store that sells fast food, a couple of quick bites, coffee, alcohol. Does it become a hangout? Does it become the place for the kids? What about the parking? We looked at that parking on the site plan. You look at all the other 7-Elevens, the 5 I just spoke of. There's parking on the street, on 25A, SUVs, pickup trucks, landscape vehicles pulling trailers. This is not what Fort Salong is about. It's going to look like Jericho Turnpike. It's going to look like Queens and Nassau County, and that isn't why people came here. Everybody is asking. The Fort Salong Association, who I represent right now, and the almost 300 calls that we received just within the last couple of weeks, because this was like out of the blue, are adamant that the board, the town, try to respect the taxpayers and the residents who came here for a particular lifestyle. My husband goes out on Bread and Cheese Hollow Road at my bequest to pick up garbage, fast food, cans, bottles. On my way to work, I stop and I pick up things. And now we're just going to have more of that, more traffic, more fumes, more garbage. And we don't have the services to correct any of that. So in addition to things like environmental impact, a loading zone that I absolutely cannot see working, an IGA and a deli right across the street that can serve the needs of the residents, a huge debris problem, a hangout, an inconsistency with the ambiance of the community, and a saturation with 5 other 7-Elevens nearby. And there's no comparison between a bank and a 7-Eleven and the type of business it brings in and the needs with food and grease and coffee and disposal. Come on. Landscaping, everything looks beautiful. Take it from me, who's had plenty of landscape plans. Looks beautiful in the plans. It doesn't translate. This is not going to calm the residents. And we ask the town board and the zoning board to please consider the citizenry, the people who have spent their money to come out here for a particular lifestyle. Another 7-Eleven is not something that we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Hello.
Good evening.
Richard Stewart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T, 70 Fort Salonga Road.
Thank you.
I probably won't talk as good as they do. I came here over 20 years ago. I'm just up the road from this bank. It always gets flooded on that corner with very heavy rains, and it even goes up on their lawn sometimes. In the back, half that parking lot in the rear gets flooded. And if I remember correctly, probably 10 years ago, that either Smithtown, New York State, or somebody gave the wetlands to us not to be touched forever. And in the 20 years I've been there, the traffic, it's a highway now. Cars coming out of there, there's going to be a lot of accidents. They can't handle, 25A can't handle that. During the good weather, you have bicycle clubs up and down that road. You have motorcycles up and down that road. People are going to get killed. You have deer crossings. You have snapping turtles laying eggs back there. And when this gets flooded, it's going to drag all that garbage from this parking lot into the wetlands. I do have a suggestion for them. Just past Elijah Churchill's, that little strip mall, they always put a grocery store there. It closes down in 3 months. That's a good place for it, if they want it. And I think Bethpage Credit Union might be interested in that. Wetlands, counties. I think that's about it. And and like everybody else said, it doesn't fit in with the character of this neighborhood. It's a quiet neighborhood. Nobody even knows it because the zip code is Northport. That's why when I moved here and I met friends, they said, yeah, there's a few mob people that live here. Yeah, because the zip code is Northport. Nobody knows Fort Salonga. That's how we like it. We like it country.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope.
Rob Trotter, 6 Tulane Court, Fort Salonga. 6 Tulane Court, Fort Salonga. You know, the reason I moved to Fort Salonga and the area was because of that iconic drive. There are very few places left on Long Island where you can drive down a windy road and enjoy yourself and not have to worry about what I saw up there, which is a turning lane and this and that. Doesn't exist now. The bank didn't require that. I mean, I go to that shopping center every single day. I go to the gym there. My nephew's calling me and screwing up my thing. And it's flooded most of the time. If we were to be building this today, if there was nothing there, you would never approve it in a million years. Even that shopping center you wouldn't approve because the water table is so high.
Excuse
It wouldn't
me.
pass. And
Please.
when I see the trucks that go to the deli, they're all parked in the parking lot, off the road. I can assure you, just as I'm standing here, those landscape trucks who can't pull in with the trailers are going to be lined up along 25A, and it's going to create a hazard. Now, not just a hazard physically, but visibly. Do we want to be driving down 25A, watching someone get out of a truck, being careful, or do we want to go through our iconic route that's like St. James? We're losing that. And you people sitting here have the ability to save it. Not us. And these empty seats are representative of people because there was supposed to be a 300 email blast that didn't go out. So apparently it didn't happen. You have the power to save our island. Not us, you do. Because if it's a 7-Eleven, rest assured everything these people say, go to the 7-Elevens, look at the parking lots. They're always dirty, the garbage cans are overflowing, you've got a great wetland. That whole thing, that whole area is built up, by the way. I mean, to put a regular sewage system there would be a disaster. I mean, what we're going through now to not put an advanced wastewater system in, and they do make them for commercial applications, by the way. And given the fact that the water, what they're saying is water is so small, it's less than a household. So you could even put, if what you're saying is true, which I think is a stretch, you could put one of those in. But that's not the point. The point is, we live here for a reason. Because of that. Because we don't see a 7-Eleven 24-hour with flashing lights and a big sign. I mean, they did a decent job trying to make it fit in. I could fill this room like that, but I thought they were going to. I had no idea. I leave it up to you to decide the future of Fort Salonga, 25A, and the town of Smithtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? No. Anyone else? Because I'm gonna bring them back to answer concerns, and that'll be it. So, does anyone else want to speak? No? Okay. Mr. Tramarko?
So actually, it looks like I'm going first. So just to touch on a couple of the things, I'll be brief, but I think there's a few that are just worth noting. So actually, it was brought up that, it doesn't fit in the area, it's not the right use. The neighborhood business district allows for a lot area coverage of 50%. So you're allowed to have a building that has an FAR of 50% of your lot area. Our FAR is 8.36%. That's the size of the building, that's the FAR versus the size of the property. I think it's also important to note that the neighborhood business district, the zoning requirement is for a landscaped area of 10% of your site, which is 3,600 square feet in our case. We're proposing almost 50% of the site to be landscaping, which is 17,904 square feet. Those are the calculations we ran. Please, it could be off by a couple hundred square feet because of the land bank stalls that we changed, but call it 17,000 square feet. I mean, half the site is landscaping. As far as the neighborhood goes, I'm actually a member of the Village of Northport Planning Board. I live in Northport. I drive home down 25A every single day. I understand the character, you know, it's a quiet road. There isn't a tremendous amount of traffic in that area. It's kind of off the beaten path, but we're putting it in a zone that's a zone neighborhood business. There are a few businesses in that area. I'm very familiar with the shopping center across the street, the IGA. It floods when it rains. And our design and the way we're doing this site is it's going to be a pretty substantial drainage system that it's a better drainage system. We'll be providing more storage than what's there and what's across the street. I mean, there's just going to be more inlets for water to get in, and there's going to be more storage underneath the ground to accommodate what really isn't a tremendous amount of stormwater that's generated. I mean, that parking lot across the street is a sea. I mean, it's just pure asphalt. So we have a lot of landscaping that'll really help, and you know, we're adding, actually for our proposal to the DOT, we're actually adding an extra catch basin out in the right-of-way because they requested it during one of our meetings. So that should help alleviate some of that flooding along 25A that happens during significant. It's not so much a long period of rain. Across the street, you get a long period of rain, there's some flooding. 25A floods when you get a large infiltration of rain, if there's 3 inches of rain in an hour. But again, our stormwater system will be designed to accommodate that. Just to hit on some of the parking stalls, so we're proposing to build 22 stalls. I took a quick look. I didn't get a chance to figure it out, but I know it pretty well. The one on Pulaski in Kings Park, I believe, has 18 stalls. I don't know that one 100%, but it's close. The one in East Northport on Laurel Avenue has 8 stalls, which is right by the Dickinson Avenue Elementary School. And then there's another one in East Northport on Pulaski that has 18 stalls. So we're actually providing more parking in this location than a few of the others. But you know, those are 3 sites that have around that 20 stall parking count that operate fairly well.
Excuse me, could you please refrain
So-
from calling out? We're trying to get everything on the record. All right, thank you very much.
And then just the last piece, the last 2 pieces I'll hit is, again, we're in with the DEC. We fill out a very significant application with them that goes through not only the effects of what our development will have on the wetlands, it also goes into detail about the surrounding area. We did flag the properties and where the wetlands are. We are not building on the wetlands. We're building within the buffer to the wetlands. But we are filling out the application. They're going to look at stuff like any endangered species in the area, any special requirements, any special things going on in that area, they will look at during their review, and so will the environmental department in the town of Smithtown. And then finally, I'm going to mention it again. I know it's unbelievable, but the Suffolk County Department of Health Services requirement, and I'm going to read them directly from the calculation, but it's 89.82 gallons per day. That's your density load for a 7-Eleven. It's 0.03 gallons per day per square foot of building. We are significantly under what's allowed at this site by over 300 gallons per day for density load. So this is, you know, while I understand that maybe people don't love the use, if you look at all the requirements and run through all the numbers, we're proposing a really good use for this area. And for the things that we're requesting, I mean, to be 300 gallons per day less than the requirement is a really significant number. So, and it's a positive for the area.
All right, thank you.
You're
Mr. Tramarko, do you have anything to add?
And very quickly, I'd like to go through the 5 criteria. Is the variance, would it have any impact on adjacent properties? Well, you can look at the view right there, and as Dale said, there's more landscaping here than on most projects that we have in Smithtown. Excuse me, probably double the amount. Will it negatively impact the groundwater? Dale went into that, and I'm not going to belabor the point. Could the benefit be achieved by an alternative? There really is no alternative other than not build a 7-Eleven. And as Dale pointed out, and as this board knows, it's a permitted use. We're not asking this board to give us permission to build a building that's permitted in this area. And not this particular board, but many years ago, a board just like you, the Board of Zoning Appeals, a board that was well comprised of citizens just like we have now, they looked at it and they said, well, a bank will be good. It's not going to have an adverse effect on the character of the area. We didn't make the rules. Neighborhood business permits it. And obviously, this board has to recognize that fact. Whether the requested variance is substantial, what are we asking for? We're asking for something that the board already granted years ago. And in point of fact, as our engineer indicated, it has less effect on the environment, not more effect. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions, well, I think we already pretty much covered the fact that it won't have any environmental effect. In fact, have less environmental effect than even the bank had. Was the difficulty self-created? Yes, we want to build a 7-Eleven, and I guess if Capital Bank could have sold that property to another bank would have bought it, and we wouldn't be standing here today. But they didn't. And the town permits 7-Elevens in neighborhood business. So we didn't self-create anything, and in fact, the two variances that we're asking this board to grant were already granted, and will have no adverse effect on the environment or on the neighborhood. And then one final thing. We know that the people who live in Fort Salonga, and they're concerned about it and would rather have something else. We tried to do our best with meeting with the planning department, going over designs and redesigns, so we would have the best pleasing effect you could have with this type of store. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. We want to do the right thing in Fort Salonga, and that's why we hired one of the best engineering firms, one of the best architects, and we're going to comply with every rule and law that the town has developed over the years. And also, as Blaze pointed out, we have to go to the Board of Site Plan Review. And if there are any little kinks that have to be straightened out, certainly the Board of Site Plan Review, which is the town board, will hold us to a strict adherence to the code. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. We say it in our opening statement, after the applicant's done, everybody gets one opportunity to speak. We don't put a time limit on it. You know, you can speak, but you get one opportunity. We're not going to have a debate going back and forth. This is the way it's been done for years.
That woman is here.
I'm sorry? The application is now closed. There'll be no vote on it tonight. They need an LWRP, they need a CEQA, they need other things, so there'll be no vote. Okay?
And there'll be no other public access to this application?
I don't think
Board of
so.
Site Plan, I think, right?
Board of Site Plan Review?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you.
Board of Site Plan Review?
Board of Site
Yeah.
Plan Review.
Yeah.
Do you have a date on that?
That's, you have to check with the town.
They don't
right?
have
Well,
a
that
date
would
on
be,
here.
that would be way down the road.
Yeah.
Lauber?
All right.
Come back.
What?
Did that person ever come back?
Or just the person standing right in front of you?
That's okay. I didn't know if this is good for you, if it isn't.
Uh,
I just ran to the home, and.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. Do you have a form that, can we do a hold on for the next hearing?
Yeah.
Is that possible? Possible to do a hold on for the next?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
She needs an adjournment.
Needs an adjournment. March 10th is here. Yeah, or the 24th. March 10th.
March 10th? All right?
Sure.
March 10th.
Okay, perfect. Goldstein, right? Yes, Goldstein.
Yeah. Now, you either come back with the applicant
I'm just gonna get the form.
or get the form.
Okay,
And it tells you, I think you have to get it notarized too.
okay, no worries. Thank you so much for your time.
All right.
March
Well,
10th.
put this.
So, you have a form that
I said that concludes the meeting for tonight. Yeah.
Okay, no
Yeah.
worries. I can do that.
Yeah, I know, you're the second person that's told us that.
Really? Sorry. It's not something you want to hear, I'm sure. No worries, I'll get that taken care of. Is everything else good?
So we can hang on to this.
Okay.